Benjamin Madley, an American author and historian, delves into the distressing history of California's Native American population in the mid-19th century in his non-fiction book, An American Genocide, The United States and the California Indian Catastrophe, 1846 to 1873. During this period, the indigenous population of California plummeted from 150,000 to 30,000. In a review for The Nation magazine, Richard White describes Madley's work as a commanding exposé, branding California's 19th-century elected officials as the primary architects of annihilation against the Native Americans in the state. Reading the book feels like witnessing a relentless accumulation of casualties on a funeral pyre. While the term genocide is typically associated with 20th-century atrocities, Madley, as a historian, finds it crucial to categorize the state-sponsored slaughter of American Indians in California as such. To substantiate this, he references the criteria set forth by the United Nations Genocide Council, which defines genocide as acts committed with the intent to destroy, either wholly or partially, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. The 19th-century Californians referred to the extensive death of American Indians as extermination, a term Madley deems synonymous with genocide. The era of genocide against California's native tribes commenced with the gold rush, triggered by the discovery of gold at Sutter's Mill in Coloma, California, in January 1848. An influx of over 300,000 prospectors from both within and outside the United States led to a substantial population increase, culminating in California's statehood in 1850. As prospectors staked their claims to the California wilderness, American Indians who obstructed their path were dispossessed of their land and subjected to a systematic killing machine. This killing machine, funded and endorsed by both the state and federal governments, consisted of U.S. Army soldiers, California militiamen, and hired mercenaries known as Indian hunters. It required sustained political will at both levels of government to enact the laws, policies, and well-funded mechanisms that executed and perpetuated this genocide over several decades. Although the actual killings were carried out by soldiers and mercenaries, Madley identifies various state and federal officials as the true masterminds behind the genocide, including John C. Fremont, a veteran of the Mexican-American War who became one of California's first two senators elected to Congress. Madley classifies the Indian genocide into three categories. The first involved attempts to physically exterminate Indians, a goal explicitly stated by the Daily Alta California newspaper in 1850, which noted that California gold miners were united in their mission to exterminate Indian tribes. The second category was enslavement, often involving the murder of Indian parents and the forced indentured servitude of their children. The third facet of genocide encompassed starvation and disease resulting from repeated assaults on Indian families and communities by U.S. troops, militiamen, and mercenaries. What made the American genocide efforts particularly successful was that many of California's Indians, notably the Miwok and Yokut tribes, had already been segregated into missions during the Mexican rule of the territory. Those who escaped were pursued, beaten, and returned. Forced to work and live in crowded conditions, the tribes were already suffering from malnutrition and disease before the arrival of the Americans. Gender segregation in the missions further led to declining birth rates among the indigenous population. Madley uncovers numerous horrifying atrocities endured by the Indians at the hands of the Americans over the 25 years following the gold rush. He acknowledges that the Indians did resist, but he refrains from characterizing the events as war, emphasizing that for every American casualty, 100 Indians, including men, women, and children, lost their lives. This extreme asymmetry in the death toll was even more pronounced in California compared to other conflicts with indigenous peoples, particularly in the American Northwest. Madley asserts that the motives behind these killings were driven by more than just greed or racism. Soldiers and mercenaries saw themselves as agents of history, a sentiment supported by an 1850 editorial in the Daily Alta California, which stated, "Such is the destiny of that miserable race, and we are but fulfilling our own by the enactment of scenes on the Pacific similar to those which have stained with blood our Indian history from the first dawnings of civilization." An American Genocide is an eye-opening and deeply unsettling exploration of one of America's darkest and most shameful chapters in history. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.